We create an environment. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from the office. You create an environment for something to grow. We do this in labs all over our country and our schools every day as tests, as experiments, okay? So we create an environment for something to grow, and then we get upset with the results of the environment we created. End of story. We created this. We allowed it. I'm going to give you one more thing. There's a couple more things on this because I want to go into some other things today, and not just DACA. But folks, there's a whole lot of 5- and 6-year-old kids that came to this country, and some of you may understand this, and some of you may not. And they came into this country, moms and dads, illegally. And dad works construction. We'll use the construction industry. Dad works construction, okay? And there's a lot of people out there that would not have gotten dad to work if they would not had the 5-year-old to call at night and try to explain to dad there's work next day and where the job is and what time to be there. Okay, so if you're out there and you understand what I just said, you'll understand how many times you called to get somebody to work the next day and you had to speak to a 5- or 6-year-old to try to explain a job and what needed done to translate to dad. We created the environment, folks. We need to understand it. We need to, I hate to say, accept it and move on. The environment's there. We got to work something. Do all 800,000? No. There needs to make sure that they're not convicted for anything while they've been here. There has to be some things put in place. But if a kid came here 4, 5, 8, or 9, and we invested all this money in them, and they have made good grades, they've done a good job, they haven't done anything, hey, and they have everything's clean, there should be an opportunity that they make certain concessions, do certain things to make sure that they want to stay and be a citizen, but you don't send them home. I'm sorry, you don't. That's my opinion. Now, the other thing about the courts, okay? You got first offender status, and you got whole different laws for children. So you got these kids, if they did not break any laws, and they were unbeknownst to them, breaking a law coming across that border. I'm tired of hearing they broke the law coming across the border, okay? So if you want to treat these kids as accomplices to a crime, if you want to go that deep, that's up to you. But we spent billions, folks, billions on these children. So you make the call, all right? What do you got, Richie?
Just a question. Do you think that when they came across matters, like say a kid that came in like the year 2000 who's now in his 20s, I understand your point on that, but what if they were here from Guatemala in 2013 after DACA came out and they flooded across the border? Do you draw any difference there?
Yes. And I'm glad you came up with that. That's a good question. Let me tell you, I'm so glad you floated that in, because this goes back to, this is in the fabric. Okay, this is in the fabric. How do you sort through? A kid is a kid. They're either 5 years old when they come, period. No matter what year it is, they're 5 years old. But Richie touches on a good point. Once 2012 DACA came into place, if you research right now, you will find article after article of how many thousands of kids were being pushed across the border with no parents, no one accompanying the kids. And you hit a home run on that one, okay? You got a home run on that one, because that's true. So there has to be dating. It's got to be before this date or something like that. It's got to be something like that. I'm not for sure what they do as a test, a litmus test, and how to implement this. But yes, since 2012, there was a flood, and you can look at the status, and we will look at that in a minute, of how many came in after DACA was signed unaccompanied by parents. Go ahead, Richie.
And then the follow-up would be, and this is where it's a whole nother can of worms, if you will, but what about, okay, so if the Dreamers are allowed to stay, their parents who knowingly broke the law, which I think should be treated differently, but if the kids are allowed to stay, then that means the parents would have to stay too, right?
Oh, there's going to be coattail. There's going to be coattail, and I have to tell you how you exactly sort through coattail. I mean, we have heard. Let's go back to the climate we created, and you bring up some valid points, because the climate we created, there's some coattail to it. It's in the fabric, and it's who's going to yell the loudest that this one has to go and that one has to go. Because I'm going to tell you, what did we hear sensationalized all through the media, through the campaign, and when Donald Trump was campaigning? Hey, they're going to go in and rip these kids from their parents. They're going to go in and rip these kids out of homes. They're going to deport these kids. They're going to rip them right out of schools. Schools were considering themselves, in colleges and grade schools and all over the United States, as safe zones, all right? Sanctuary schools. We went through all that. The headlines are all the sensational. We're talking nuts and bolts today, folks. It's in the fabric. So there's going to be things you don't like. So the kid 20 years old that you're fighting whether they should get in-state tuition, I understand. I'm with you. In-state tuition, it's all over. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. So should the kids get in-state tuition? They're 18 years old. Should they get in Georgia the Hope Scholarship? Should they get that in in-state tuition? Whatever. You can't take. I've heard all the arguments. If a kid goes to another school, another state, higher level of learning, right? Learning what? What the hell? I don't know. But if a kid goes to a state school, there's out-of-state tuition. What does this do if you legalize this and now you consider an illegal came into this country and got in-state tuition, but your kid in Georgia can't decide to go to Oklahoma, can't decide to go to Kansas, can't decide to go to Tennessee. Well, people do that, but they can't decide to do that because they don't want to pay out-of-state tuition. I mean, there is so much that happened here, but let me end this by saying, because we put an hour and a half on this, this is on President Donald Trump's desk, folks. It's on the desk. And he doesn't get to tax reform. He doesn't get to the things we want in this country. I mean, I'm not going to cheer for amnesty, and I'm not going to cheer supporting the president. And I do think the president is backpedaling from, at one point he's saying, 3 hours ago, the wall, which is already under construction, no deal was made. And then 2 hours ago, he says right behind there, does anyone really want to throw good, educated, accomplished young people who have jobs and some in the military out? So I think he's going to make a deal on this, all right? I absolutely do. And how does he get to anything else if he doesn't clean some of these things off his plate? So before we close this at 9:30, let's not forget about all the regulations and EPA that's been rolled back. Let's not forget that coal miners are working. A good part of coal miners are back to work. Let's not forget that Joe Manchin and Senator David Perdue are cutting deals as we speak. We got to be nervous on that. We'll get to that one at a different time. But not David Perdue, Senator David Perdue, but what's going on there with these let's see. Depends. Adults speak English. Depends adults. Depends adults. Speak English, have education and job, no criminal record, etc. Kids stay with vetted parents with restrictions of same. That was from Red Lady in a Blue State. Red Lady in a Blue State, we know which blue state that is, thank you, has tweeted out to FetchYourNews, depends. Adults speak English, have education and a job, no criminal record, etc. Kids stay with vetted parents with restrictions of same. Hashtag build the wall. We still got to do that. So I want to finish up by saying, I just saw that come in. I want to finish up by saying that these things had to get off the president's desk. Bottom line, let's not gloss over coal miners are working. Let's not gloss over EPA, what's happening on rollback regulations. Let's not gloss over the judges, Neil Gorsuch. Let's not gloss over all of the things, the positive things, and the promises Donald Trump has kept. But this is on his desk, folks. Like it or not, I don't support it. I don't really want it. I don't like it, but it's the climate. It was sitting on the desk. You know, if you're going to let Paul Ryan still be Speaker of the House and you're going to accept the omnibus, which most of you don't, as when he said it was baked, the cake was baked on his desk when he got there. If you're going to accept all of that from Paul Ryan, he's still Speaker of the House, least you could do is realize the President of the United States, this is going to take 15, 20 years to turn this mess around. And he's got to get some of these things off his plate so he can continue to work. Steve Bannon, did he know this? Did Bannon know this when he left? Did Bannon leave in time to get the base in an uproar? Did Bannon leave in time to start finding candidates to primary and districts?